As Nigeria moves steadily towards the 2027 general elections, concerns over the health of the country's democracy continues to grow. From weak party ideologies and internal crises to declining voter participations and growing public distrust, experts say the nation's political party must undergo urgent reforms if democracy is to truly serve the people. These issues took center stage at the 2026 Dr. Tajuddin Abdulrahim and Professor Abubakar Momo's annual memorial lecture organized by the Center for Democracy and Development, where leading scholars, policy experts, and democracy advocates examine the future of Nigeria's democratic journey. The annual memorial lecture, organized by the Center for Democracy and Development, honors the enduring legacy of two renowned Pan-African scholars, Dr. Tajuddin Abdulrahim and Professor Abubakar Momo, whose lifelong commitment to democracy, social justice, and good governance continues to inspire conversations on Africa's democratic future. In his opening remarks, the CDD director, Dr. Dauda Garuba, said this year's theme reflects the urgent need to reposition political parties as true vehicles for democratic governance rather than mere platforms for political powers.
As pioneer members of the International Governing Council of CDD, Taju was chair and Abu was treasurer. And most people will attest to the fact that for the trustworthiness of Abu, he was virtually almost treasurer in some of the organizations he has featured, both at the level of the National ASU, as well as ASU at the LASU level. The recognition of the life they lead and the philosophical principles of democracy that they pushed until their deaths on 25th May 2009 and 29th May 2017, respectively, CDD uses the annual lecture to reflect on challenges facing Africa and propose solutions. Our guest lecturers, panelists, and other guests have done this in the most Pan-African manner without resort to biases, especially those that are in the area of ethnicity and religion. For both Taju and Abu, place of origin, religious affiliation did not matter. Indeed, it was common to hear Taju respond to questions of, where are you from? And he will ask you, he respond, what does it matter? Because he related with people on the basis of their humanity and also the Pan-Africanist spirit that guided his life. Abu, on the other hand, as we all know, spent all his life interrogating phrases, thesis, and antithesis, complexifying issues, clearing other bushes of obscured issues, and those were exactly the words he will use. Let's interrogate it. The other one is the issue of thesis was very rife among Abu, Professor Egu, and Professor Ibianu when they are discussing thesis. And I remember the 1994 NPSA conference, Nigerian Political Science and Social Conference, that I attended here in Abuja. I came from Port Harcourt to attend that conference, and there was a paper he presented where we were talking of clearing the underbush. And I remember one of my classmates then in Uniben, who is no more today, of blessed memory, John Moro. He had worked in Action Aid and got also met his own death as a result of the birthday crash some years ago. That became something we used to joke every time, clearing the underbush. So the topic for this year's memorial lecture is From Promise to Paralysis, Political Parties and Challenges of Democratic Consolidation in Nigeria. The choice of this topic is not only apt, but imperative, especially in the context of what is happening in the country today. As the giant of Africa, to use a popular and arguably epitaph, Nigeria's democracy has suffered setback associated with inability of political parties and the political class to play the role expected of them. Yet, for a country like Nigeria, where the only constitutional means of accessing power is through electoral contest by political party, because as you will want to agree, our constitution do not have provision for independent candidacy. If you must access power in Nigeria, it is through elections. And if it is through elections, you must go through a political party. We would have ordinarily expected that our parties would have been very strong by now, especially as edgy rooms for incubating ideas that we need to develop as a country. So our democracy will only be as strong as the vibrancy of our political parties. Democracy in contemporary Nigeria is, to a very regrettable extent, has political parties that have declined so grossly. So rather than be the catalyst and edgy room for incubating ideas that promote social justice and people-centered development, political parties have become mere platforms for accessing power, totally devoid of ideology and integrity. On Friday last week, this was the subject that my immediate predecessor at Center for Democracy and Development had to engage in the tweet space. I mean, X space, as we move towards the 2027 election. So indeed, Nigeria never had it so bad with political parties as in the current time. 7 months to the election, uncertainties loom among the big parties, perhaps with the exception of the ruling All Progressive Party. And even that, if you are looking at the accusing figures being pointed from all directions, even the party is accused as being responsible for some of the crises that is affecting other organizations, I mean political parties. But this is not our...
Delivering the keynote lecture, political scientist Professor Samuel Igu examined the structural weaknesses confronting Nigeria's political parties. He, however, identified weak ideology, poor internal democracy, frequent defections, elite dominance, and declining voter confidence as major obstacles to democratic consolidation, insisting that meaningful reforms must begin within the political parties themselves.
And the public the information for making informed choices. It is also true that within democratic theory, peaceful protests and anomic behaviors are accepted, and therefore you cannot even define the limit to which the people can express their disagreement with the prevailing political order. Now, the functioning of political party largely has implications for the quality of election and electoral integrity. That elections are central to representative democracy is widely accepted, but election can also serve as a venue for cloaking authoritarian regimes. In other words, elections can be held regularly, yet not accord meaning to the people's sovereignty implied by the vote. This has been the case since 1999 in Nigeria, where elections seem thus far to have served mainly the interest of the power elite and have had little, if any, significant impact on deepening representative democracy, let alone result in positively transforming the socio-economic conditions of the people. The consequence is that Nigerian voters are mere voters and do not, in the literal sense, constitute an electorate, because there is little or no connect between the people who cast their votes and the elected officials, who do not owe their election to what people express through the ballots. The deficit of elections notwithstanding, elections have continued to play an important role in Nigeria's political life and can contribute to democratic stability, because it is at the heart of the politics of elite bargain, and that is exactly what holds the country together. We will not get what we want from election, but even as we see it as a formal game, it is helpful to keep the country stable and provide the basis for the elite to negotiate their own interests. So every election is an opportunity for the elite to renegotiate their interests, and it is really not about the people. But that is by the way. While the party system, and this is very important, while the party system is an important determinant of elections with integrity, the party system does not exist in isolation from the wider political economy, the power dynamics, and the political culture of the elite in power. And I will mention three important factors that suggest that if you focus on the party system without looking at the wider political context, we will miss the point. And the first one that I want to mention is the political choice a country makes between the two grand alternatives, presidential and parliamentary system of government. In Nigeria, we have made a choice in 1979 by opting for a presidential system of government akin to that of the United States of America. By that, we jettisoned the Westminster system that we had in the First Republic. And what I want to draw attention to is the fact that compared to the parliamentary system, the presidential system creates problems for democratic problems. And the only exception is the United States of America. For those who have read Lynch very carefully, that is the only presidential system that has been able to develop democracy. Otherwise, there is something structurally wrong with the presidential system. You have a president that controls, his cabinet, that is elected for a fixed term of office. You have a president that has the capacity to personalize power. And when you have an imperial president, it can constrain all the democratic institutions, including anti-corruption institutions, including opposition parties, and so on. So my point really is that the choice we have made deliberately in 1979 defines a limit to which democratic politics can thrive in Nigeria. I'm not saying we should return to the parliamentary system, but I think we need to underscore the fact that more often than not, presidential systems are difficult for democracy.
Follow, like, share at Media 360 Impact for credible, people-centered reporting.